Sup world, sup Zion, it's Prince Easy coming at you again once more as usual. Do have a couple of slides that I want to share with you in this fine day that we're having here, of course. And before we get to those, I want to issue a fair use disclaimer, right, for all the copyrighted material that's going to be shared here in this here video. Okay, so without further ado, let's get to it. Right, let's dive into it. So, more oil theft. Who do you think the culprits are? What do you think is the biggest controversy in Babylon pertaining to energy? Is these tech bros building nuclear plants and not allowing anybody else to use those facilities? So, whose ideas was this? But again, Venezuela cannot have a nuclear bomb. We're gonna cycle back to this. This is some interesting statistics. Very interesting. And how you can overlay the Bantu Israelite movement from East Africa to West Africa and you overlay it with the supposed Israelite movement from Eastern Africa to Western Africa. The overlay is perfect, seamless. But again, some are, I don't know, they are black and not from Africa, I guess. I don't know. The conspiracy, right? This is from a movie called, this movie is called The Lightning Cord, right? And as usual, just a further simulation to entrap the Prince of Israel. That is represented by the black girl in that movie, right? But in this particular narrative, of course, you can see the black woman over there, and they do it over and over. Here's another one. You know, what do you think this is about? Right? Because they know exactly what they're doing, right? They're just pretending to the world and distracting the world from the truth of what they're actually doing and transpiring to do and actively doing. Well, I guess the Iran war done undone a lot of things, right? Because now they're waking up to the reality that maybe perhaps what we know is obsolete, as in there is technology out there that can create the illusion of climate change, right? Yeah, no other way to look at it. A disaster. Just a disaster. Dr. Ann out here. While the Egyptians are meticulously and slowly, literally whitewashing their ancestors. Some of them anyway. Literally. Statues, whitewashing them. Right? They done learn from the devil their father, I guess. This is another big controversy. Right? People are even coming out with big titles like Nolan has ended his career. Literally, he's gonna get cancelled. You know? The hypocrisy of these so-called white people is insane, brothers and sisters. Let's just say that, right? Let's just say that. But the brother does a good job of diving into the cracks of this whole narrative that is being painted, right? This innate racism that has been made manifest in these years, recent. It seems like an increase. Look at that. Like I said, every time when it's convenient, they come up with the diseases and stuff. The African Center for Disease Control and Prevention, ICDC, declares a new Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Eastern Ituri province. Around 246 cases and 65 deaths has been reported, mainly the town of Magwalu and can't even. Well, those are Christian Zionists. This is for you, right, to disprove that this was not written or expressed for that matter. Of course, we have talked about the tube, not the tube, the cube, and the six-pointed star, and the upward and downward facing triangles. Yes, we are looking at the beast and the flag of Remphan. It has nothing to do with David. Okay, as we have said, David was a Bantu, right? He was a Bantu person. They have nothing to do with these cowards here, these demons in disguise. And of course, talking about demon in disguise, apparently this witch here is gonna rebuild Ukrainian schools. I don't know what type of magic, witchcraft she's going to do over there, but no good. No good, I tell you. Other demons. I think we'd uncovered this. And of course, Talmud and Freemasonry, one in the same. Right? The tortoise on top of an elephant, on top of a globe. Right? They like to mock you like this. Right? With a checkerboard. The black and white. And of course, they keep, of course, they have to. Right? This is from a movie. Right? And of course, she has a poking thingy, which is supposed to be a vortex. Right? That pierces the firmament to give them access to humanity, to manipulate humanity from within. And this is from your movie over here. Begonia. That's what the movie is called. And of course, that is the earth. That is the actual earth. Not a globe. This is almost funny, but when the truth come out, this is gonna be really, really dark. I cannot wait. And of course, the CIA working with Hollywood, right, creating boogeymen, and we, especially we as an African people, have been bearing witness to this, right? We have been consuming Western media before the Chinese and the Indians had access to our markets, right, to showcase their bodies of art. And I can definitely tell you, they have done a extensive job to demonize the Russians, for instance, right? Like, it's insane. You need to look at the catalog, right? You need to look at the video games, right? The Call of Duty franchise. You know, it can be a traitor from within, but somehow the franchise found a way to shift the blame. Right? National security and all. Right? This is Dwayne "The Rock" Jackson. And this is a skit. And they thought, like, somebody literally sat down and wrote this, and they thought that, you know, this would be funny. This is what they think. So again, if this happens to such a guy, then do not be, it's witchcraft. right? This whole cross-dressing and pedophilia and all of these things, they are all part of sorcery, witchcraft, right? And there's much darker stuff out there, right? So let's examine this picture, and we're gonna have a conversation about it, right? Wage slave lifestyle, slave to unnecessary obligations society makes up, under constant surveillance, successful on paper only, needing permission to do everything. Success is just paying bills for shinier stuff. Shots fired. World-ending event, government collapse, no more regulations, everything is reset to zero. Who's gonna do the resetting? You don't have to go to work tomorrow. That's a vision that he has. Nobody in the apocalypse, freedom over safety, not tethered to institutions or fake obligations, self-sufficient, not dependent on the system for survival. Almost impossible to monitor because of nomadic lifestyle, right? There is a theme here. Concerns of surveillance, and of course, societal pressures, right? But again, the perspectives are entirely personal, right? If we are talking about a group, then you are just a cog in a machine, right? We operate a certain portion of society while others operate in another portion of society, and together we have nations and stuff, right? So tribes that are dependent on each other. But again, the roles is what defines the mechanism, right? But if a person goes into it in a individualistic mindset, they thrive, or rather their goal is to take themselves out of the equation, right? They need to take themselves out of the equation, and they believe that a single person can be self-sufficient in anything. Well, that's a lie, in my opinion. That's a delusion. Okay, that's just a delusion, right? It is tempting, right, to think of it like that, right? But it's not gonna work out, right? So let me digest something real quick, right? So the guy in the thumbnail talked about survival, right? And first and foremost, I understand the sentiment, right? I understand why people are there, and I'm gonna try to, I don't know, put in my perspective into the whole situation, right? So as we can, I don't know, move forward if that is even possible, right? We have to, again, survival and change. That is the headline of this short dialogue that we're gonna have here, right? Is it, can you even call it a dialogue? But again, a transfer of ideas, right? So the question that I begin with is, what do we need to survive? And I've listed a couple things that people actually need to survive, right? Knowledge, fear, passion, community, movement, right? Either like a tree, extending your roots, right? Knowing the people around you, or your branches, knowing the people that are far off. Or you can be a nomad like the guy, right? Moving from here to here, here to there. But again, you have to have a purpose for this, right? It's not right? A collective purpose, right? You cannot just be hopping from country to country and country to country, and the whole community gets nothing out of it, right? While the community is literally enabling you to move from place to place. So again, it gets confusing, right? Right? And of course, might be tempting, right, to I don't know, challenge any of them. Like for instance, they might say, oh, knowledge lessens your fear. No, actually, I think it does the I think it does the opposite, right? That's why they came up with the saying, right? Ignorance is bliss, right? Okay. And of course, in the middle of that, they gave us money, which is the worst of all. Why is it the worst of all? Well, instead of knowledge, they gave people foolishness. They made fear God, right? Not God having the fear of our Creator, but now they want us to actually fear. I don't know if. And of course, as we have seen with censorship, right, and the so-called cancel culture, we are seeing the death of passion, right? We are seeing the death of passion, and this whole gatekeeping, right, of artistry is literally killing passion, right? These Jews have, especially to the melanated people, to the black people, because again I have to emphasize this: they know exactly who they are, and they know exactly who we are, right? The Bantus, they know exactly who we are, and it's in their interests to keep their yoke in our neck, and that's not an option. Okay, so after this whole control of these demonic people, what happens? Depression, right? From passion to depression, right? And people yearning for freedom. Freedom to do what exactly? I don't know, right? But the guy had motorbikes and stuff. I guess you cannot motocross these days. Like he said, without permission, right? And of course, the sense of community is broken from its core. The family, right? The family. And after that, it's just what is left is just individualism, which is not really sustainable, right? And of course, movement has been limited by borders and of course permits. People call them visas and stuff, right? And of course, shame. Shame is literally being glorified, right? We had this black woman, right? This I don't know what to call him, Hefty, right? This Rizzo guy, right? Again, the synagogue of Satan is just conspiring, and they say they're calling it body positivity movement, right? That if a person is looking unhealthy, right, we shouldn't say anything, right? We should have a positive mindset towards an unhealthy lifestyle, right? So they promoted this woman dressed in some. It's shame is being glorified. So what did they do exactly, right? Because you can see, as I'm trying to demonstrate what they have done, right? They are trying to change you. They are trying to change you, right? Why? Because that has an effect on your survival, and it's vice versa. Survival is change. Change is survival. The two are separate but yet mutual, right? And they literally depend on one another, right? I'm not moving fast, but again, I hope you're having. This is why we record these things, right? You can watch it back again and again. So, what do we need to do? We need to survive. We need to survive. I was watching this collage of the European brethren shedding tears and crying. And this guy, one of them had 2 trucks, right? And he was basically complaining that now he could not afford to put fuel on them. I was sitting there like, okay, this guy has no survival instincts at all. Those things have been taken away, right? And I'm serious. I mean, look at the first category, right? Knowledge, fear, passion, community, movement, and shame. Just a few examples of the things that we need to have in order to survive, right? Why do you think they call them pride parades? Because it was a shameful thing, but now it is being glorified, right? Just like the Epstein class is being glorified, right? The American culture is glorifying criminality. I don't know why people are surprised by this, right? Look at the movies, Dexter. You know how many movies like that have been made? I mean, Bonnie and Clyde. Why are these people famous? These people are maniacs, psychopaths, right? Making movies about Pablo Escobar. Like, are you serious, bro? This is literally the definition of our society today. And they do these things so as to bring about a change, a predetermined change, because they determine our modes of survival, how we survive. Right? Me personally, they have a program for me for torture, right? Constant torture, all day, constantly. Right? Now you might ask yourself, why? Well, let's talk about fear, right? And what fear has the power to do, or to accomplish rather. Right? You learn and you transmit that knowledge over and over, and it goes on and on. But on a personal level, we are talking about 2 types of changes mainly, right? Changes that happen inside a person and the changes that happen outside, right? So the 2 examples, right? Torture is meant to change you from within, because torture has a survival, right? Torture and survival, they are contradicting. They cannot coexist, right? They cannot coexist, right? They are competing for supremacy, right? And as long as they are competing, people are going to suffer, right? So what do they want? They want you to change something so as your survival can also, okay? And it's the same thing with the Epstein files, the so-called blackmail, right? Some people are talking about even Hugh Hefner running such programs and stuff, or P. Diddy, or now the Epstein guy, right? Why? That blackmail is a fun example, right, of the change that they want to impose on society from the outside, right? Because they blackmail you so as to have access to your community, right? Or the community in general. So then you have to, I don't know, choose for your own self. Do you give them access, right? Do you give them access, or do you deny them, right? But again, we're going back to the same old conversation that we have had above when we're talking about this, especially in the whole aspect of community, right? These people are easily blackmailable, if that's even a word. It's because their sense of community is gone, right? They have reached a level of I don't know, selfishness and individualism that they are blackmailable, right? They care so much about their reputation, they care so much about their legacy, they care so much about how they are remembered, right? That they are willing to kill or let other people die for this. This is how blackmail works. They cannot blackmail a guy like me because I don't really care about him. I lie about myself. So they cannot use me to get access to the community that I'm with. I mean, think about it, really. Think about, you can take a piece of paper, write down everything that is wrong with society today, and trust me, it will boil down to the things that are just, they are right here in front of you, right? And Africa is not fighting poverty, right? That's why I don't mention this word poverty, no. Why? It's because in reality we are fighting against inflation, not poverty. And if you look at the problem like that, then maybe, right? How to mitigate, how to reduce the effects of inflation. How do you do that? An industrial base, okay, the things that we all know, right? But again, survival and change. Okay? Survival and change. I'm gonna go on for long. I'm gonna put a pin on it right here. So, Prince Easy signing out. I love you. Bye.